a lot going on. We got a couple bowl games as well. Maybe we'll get into towards the end of the show, but it is a college hoops show, and we'll kind of have an open dialogue today of games you want to talk about, games that we have our eye on. Having a little trouble getting Ian Cameron on. We hope to get him on momentarily so we can break down the card here together. But as we wait on him, we will um, just take care of a little business here. We thank everyone out there listening, tuning in around the world. If you're out there, hit the like button. Let us know you're here. Say hello. If you're new to SBR, hit the subscribe button, the little bell. That way you're notified every time we
Oh,
go
we are
live.
on.
Uh, all right. We're live here. Make sure you also sbrpicks.com. Head on over there. SBR Picks is a great site. It allows you to really take a look at what everybody's doing here at SBR. You got the link to you can learn more about Bitcoin, where you can trade Bitcoin and what books use it. Different links to blogs written by great people at SBR as far as information on anything sports, NFL, baseball, hockey, whatever you want. Got a link to the forum, the contest page where there's some great contests. Make sure you're using all the resources here at SBR. Ian Cameron, are you here? We have you?
Yes, we do, big man. Took a while, but we're
Very
here.
good.
We're good. We're ready to rock and roll. Let's do it on a Saturday. Bulls, college basketball. What a day.
Very good. Let's jump into it here. Like Ian said, a lot to do. And if you're out there and you are able to, please retweet the show. It's very important to the growth of the show. It allows not only your followers to see it and our followers, but anyone that retweets the show to see it. So, yeah, please do that. Let's get into it, Ian Cameron. First of all, did you have any plays last night in college hoops? How'd they go? Not a big card.
Yeah, last night I split. I had two releases last night. UC Davis was one, and the one that really bothered me was South Dakota State last night. Just an absolutely horrible loss for me on that one. I know, big man, you wax poetic about Mike Dom, but I'm no Mike Dom fan after what I saw last night. Brickfest at the free throw line with your team up 6 in the first overtime. You got to be better in that spot. You're supposed to be this big time player for the Jackrabbits, and you can't sink one damn free throw down the stretch. All you need to do is hit one. You probably put the Colorado Buffaloes away in that basketball game, but they couldn't do it. Colorado rallies somehow from 6 points down with a minute to go in the first overtime to tie it up, force a second overtime. And of course, South Dakota State's will and spirit is crushed by that point, losing that 6 point lead in the first overtime in the fashion that they did. Colorado runs away with it in the second overtime. They end up winning by 9 points as a 4.5 point favorite. I took 4.5 with South Dakota State. Brutal beat, but sometimes with dogs in overtime, that's going to happen. But not a shining moment for Mike Dom. The Dominator came up pretty small in overtime. Free throws, you got to hit them, my friend. You got to hit your free
Well,
throws in a spot like that, and he didn't.
Well, for the record, he does shoot 81%. He did miss 3 free throws last night, which these are the big ones in the game, which is concerning. Did have a big game, but you're right. I mean, you got to make some of them big free throws late. I've been on record as saying I think he's the best all-around player in the country, just because I know what he's done and what he's going to do. But yeah, you got to make those free throws late in the game. That was a tough one
Tough.
for sure. I had been on a pretty good run, but I had in a card like last night, there were only what 4 or 5 games all week. The schedule's not been good for finals week, but I had UC Davis. I mean, I had to figure. It seemed like I didn't see one person on the other side last night, and by the time that one went live, that was a little concerning. But again, we weren't able to get the job done there.
South
But
Dakota State
so,
was up by 6, big man. Up by 6 with a minute to go in the first overtime. I got plus 4.5, and I don't cash my ticket. That's tough. That's pretty rough. But we move on. What
oh
can you
yeah,
do?
you're totally right. I hear you on that one. We welcome everyone. We can't list everyone's name, but if you're out there, thank you for listening. Feel free to send in anything you want us to talk about. We'll start out with some of the 12 o'clock games. Try to get a quick opinion on those. We'll start with some of the big ones here. Butler, Purdue. Purdue lane 7 total 142. Purdue continues to impress Ian Cameron. The big thing that I don't like about Purdue is I think their big men are soft. I was concerned about after Caleb Swanigan left how good their bigs were. But I got to tell you, here's the thing about Isaac Haas. He's a big kid. He's not very brolic or he's not very tough, it seems like. But I got to tell you, when he gets the ball around the rim, it's pretty difficult to stop him. I mean, let's be real. He's a good defender, and what he does is he really walls off the rim basically, where it's really tough to score around the rim with him in the game. He's so big. It's kind of like Taco Fall in a way. He's really going to rail off that rim, and it's very difficult to score against them in the low post just because they are so big. And you can knock him all you want. I've knocked him for his inability to be tough, but when he gets the ball around the rim, it's pretty tough to stop. And I got to be real. I'm not sure that there's many players on Butler that can stop it either. I think Butler's pretty decent, but again, they have a new coach. They're going to Purdue here. I think Purdue's just a better team. I don't have a particular feel in the number itself. It could be a couple too many points, but this Purdue team, I'm not really looking to step in front of.
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement. I mean, they're laying 7 here in this spot, the Purdue Boilermakers. And look, this is a team that I think as the season's progressed, they've gotten better. They've been really tough on this home court. We know this is not a place where Purdue often plays poorly, and that's been more of the same this year. Bankers playing on this home court, although this one, Bankers Life Fieldhouse, this is actually a neutral court game here, Butler and Purdue. Nevertheless, Purdue's been very solid. I mean, their results are impressive. They had a nice win against Marquette on the road. They beat up Louisville at home. They went on the road, beat Maryland. That's a pretty good road win for Matt Painter's team, 80-75. They absolutely crushed Valparaiso recently. They beat Northwestern at home. Struggled a little bit in that one, but still got the victory. Didn't get the point spread cover, but I've got questions about how good this Butler Bulldogs team is this year. I don't think they're quite as good as they've been in years past in terms of being tested away from home. They had an overtime win against Ohio State on a neutral court. They lose by double digits on a neutral floor to Texas. They lose by 14 on the road at Maryland. I'm not sure I'm ready to trust Butler here in a step-up spot like this. I know Keelan Martin's a very good senior forward for this team, is averaging over 20 points per game. Tyler Weidman, Paul Jorgensen, solid players. But, I think this is a Purdue team that's playing good because you mentioned Isaac Haas. He looks like he's playing better. He's starting to take his game to another level. Dakota Mathias, you like the way he's playing. You like the way Edwards is playing for this Purdue team. No question about that. Their backcourt pretty solid for this team. No question. Vince Edwards. There's good players on this Purdue Boilermakers team, and I'm not convinced I've seen great enough results from Butler yet in these step-up spots to trust them. So if I'm playing this one, I'm laying the points.
Do want to make a point. Game starting at 12 o'clock. I'm gonna mention right now. You might want to get on Detroit Mercy. 19 is still available. March Wagner's not playing in this game. Has just been reported by multiple outlets. Detroit Mercy is a pretty good offensive team. Without Wagner, I'm not confident Michigan can win by 20 points here. This might be a good spot for Detroit Mercy. Mercy's had a tough year, but I do want to point out they were without their coach for a period of time. Bakari Alexander, he was away from the team, took a personal leave of absence, but he is back. Detroit Mercy is really usually what they typically are. They can score, and they're not particularly good defensively. But the thing with Michigan is they have to make outside shots to be really effective, especially without Wagner in there. Are they better athletes? Sure, but Detroit Mercy, this is kind of that big brother, little brother kind of game, and I think in a spot like this, getting 19, they definitely are worth a look. Now that Wagner's out, I think this might be a little too high. They have some really good players: Corey Allen, Jaleel Hogan, Cameron Chapman. This team, do they play a lot of defense? I'm not going to try to sell you that they do. I'm just in the belief that even without Wagner, it might be one too many points in this one. So if you can get 19, it might still be worth a look. About 50 minutes here before the game starts. Can we talk about teams who haven't played a true road game yet? I'm looking to fade those teams. There aren't many that haven't. As far as fading, listen, I don't really.
Hey, I'll tell you one who hasn't. I'll tell you one who hasn't played a true road game yet, but I actually like them today, even though they haven't, and that's Syracuse. They haven't played a true road game, but they're finally playing one today against Georgetown. So there's one as an example.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's a good point. As far as another thing, I see Kyle Honey said Detroit Mercy and Michigan both have a common opponent in UCLA. I mean, Okay. I mean, that doesn't really mean a ton to me as far as common opponents. I mean, they're playing each other now. Now they have to worry about each other. As far as a common opponent, they just could have had a bad game to Trey Mercy that day. Listen, I'm not going to try to sell you that they're a good defense team. They're not. I'm just thinking in this case, it's too many points with Wagner out. Um, as far as yeah, the question on road teams, it's really about situationally. I mean, where what team it is, what the spot is. I'm gonna imagine that they played some kind of road game though. But there maybe are teams like Georgetown. That's a good one. Let's go to that game. This is a game Morency and I talked about last night for a short period of time. I know John Patrick Ewing's trying to take a page out of John Thompson's book, but this schedule so far is pathetic. I mean, your toughest game was against Richmond, and that was without Juan Fore in there, and he's their best player, Richmond. They only even won that game by 6 points. I'm just not really sure I understand why you schedule like this. It doesn't prepare your team at all for the season. It's really just exhibition games for the first 8 of the season. Now you got to go play George or Syracuse, who I think this year, as far as Syracuse is concerned, this is one of their better defensive teams. Very long, athletic. They've got a pretty good offensive game as well. I think this is going to be kind of a bit of a real step up in class if you're Georgetown. I don't know how good they really are. This is a concern. The only really plus here is they are playing in Washington. Any thoughts on this game, Ian Cameron?
Well, I definitely had Syracuse in pocket last night, and this is one of those games where you're like, "Wow, I'm really, really glad I bet this last night because obviously it's steamed ever since or throughout this morning. I mean, you could have gotten what 2.5 with Syracuse last night overnight, and now you're seeing 5.5, 5, pretty much the prevailing number with Syracuse in this game, and you could see why there's been Syracuse money. I mean, to me, they're the better team. To me, they've been much more battle tested so far than Georgetown has. I mean, Georgetown is undefeated, but who have they beaten? They've beaten nothing but Sisters of the Poor, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of a scheduling perspective. Not been tested whatsoever by anything to the caliber that they're going to get in this game from this Syracuse team. And, give them credit. They beat the teams they probably in most cases here, Georgetown, were expected to. But let's see what they do here as they step up in class here against this Syracuse team. Let's not forget Patrick Ewing coming in, cleaning up a program that was pretty bad the last couple of years. And can you just all of a sudden expect Georgetown to be ready to compete on this level against a team like Syracuse that's played very well, that's played very good defensively against a Georgetown team that, from a shooting perspective, I've got a few concerns about them. I mean, in terms of shooting the three ball, Georgetown's been okay so far, 39%. That's actually not bad statistic. It gives them maybe a puncher's chance today, but now you're facing a much better 3-point defensive team, obviously playing that zone like Syracuse does. So I'm just not. I know it's been nice start 8-0. Everyone's a little excited now. Patrick Ewing there and all that. I understand that, but still, you're talking about a young team that's now playing a much tougher opponent, a huge step up in class. I'm not sure they're ready for it. I laid 2.5 with Syracuse. It's getting up there. You're losing a lot of value now, but I'd still lean to the Syracuse side in this game. I had to laugh. Big man, this is hilarious to bring this up. Someone on Twitter, I can't remember, I saw it last night. Syracuse, Georgetown, get my Big East game of the year. You do realize, pal, that Syracuse isn't in the Big East anymore, right? They're in the ACC. You do get that? Do you understand that?
I think
When you're putting that
I
out
think
there,
people
it's ridiculous. Yeah.
I think people are still living in the past. Listen. I know people continue to want to talk about the Big East. It was a great matchup. Yeah, we know it was 5 years ago. Let's move on. They're in a different league now. Yeah, I feel like I saw that same guy as well. He should do his homework. Ian Cameron, interesting game we're seeing here. I saw some people talking about 519, 520. Miami on the road against George Washington, laying 8. Your number is a little curious, seems a little low, especially for a Miami team that's undefeated right now. You do look as far as road games. They went on the road, beat a good Minnesota team in Minneapolis. That's a tough thing to go and do. So they have been on the road, but you look at other than that, you look at have they played in a tough game? I'm not really sure. I like Miami. I've said it all year. I think they're some of the best guards in the country. You're starting to see that Lonnie Walker is a really good NBA prospect. Saw him many times in high school. Hell of a player. And they've gotten some really, really, really good minutes out of Huell on the block. The concern I had for Miami this year was, do they have a good enough inside threat Huell has played pretty well, but that four guard kind of lineup has worked. And without Brown right now, they played pretty well. So I don't know. GW is kind of a weird spot though. A pretty decent team in Washington. I don't think it's a trap though. I think they're a better team than GW. I think they should go on the road, take care of business here. But a lot of these 12 o'clock games, we're really just talking about because they're on. I'm not sure that for me it's a betting opportunity. The line does seem a little bit low. What are your thoughts, Ian Cameron?
Yeah, I mean, I'm staying away. I mean, I don't trust George Washington. I think this team's a good notch or two down the Colonials this year from where they've been in years past. They've always been a pretty consistent team in that A10, but I don't know if they're that as good this year. And they're coming off a really bad showing against Penn State last game, 74-54, lose by 20 points as 13-point underdogs. I'm not sure they're ready to step up in class here in this game. One concern for Miami is, though, they've been off since December 5th, on nearly 2 full weeks since they last played. Exam week. Again, you're going to want to examine some of these schedules. There have been teams that, due to exam week, big man, they've been off for a very long period of time. You just want to be aware of which teams those are and if there's been practices being run during this downtime, this off period. So just want to get a sense of what these teams have been doing if they haven't played for quite some time. And Miami is one of those teams. So we'll see. I mean, they're undefeated. I don't trust George Washington to step up in class, but still laying points on the road at this magnitude, big man, at an early start time is something I'm a little leery of. Look at last week, Duke and Boston College. Look what happened to Duke in an early start game against BC on the road. Anything can happen. I'm not saying Miami loses this game. They shouldn't. I don't expect them to, but weird things can happen, especially at this time of year, coming off exam week, holiday season right around the corner. Just want to make sure that Jim Laranaga's squad is fully focused on this game. If they are, they can cover this number, but if they aren't, it could be in some trouble.
Yeah, Bruce Brown out, the team leader, a guy that is real versatile in that lineup. He's out with a hand injury. That's a concern. Also, Miami shoots free throws at 57%. That's not good enough. They have to get better at the line. That's concerning landing a number like this because that's going to be important to cover a number like this. Foul shots late in the game at 57%. It is a little bit concerning. Ian, let's get into some games that we actually have our eyes on here. As far as I've made that point in the past. I'm not a huge fan of 12 o'clock games just from a perspective of a lot of the time teams fall asleep in the first half. They're not totally ready for it. I'm going to start out here taking a look at this one. Middle Tennessee State heading on the road to take on Auburn. A curious matchup here. This Middle Tennessee State team under Kermit Davis continues to impress year after year. They lose players last year, Reggie Upshaw, Corey Williams, to come right back at it, and have come right back at it in a big way. They crushed Mississippi State over the week. I mean, Ian, they're beating SEC teams here. 2 straight wins against SEC teams. Beat a very good Florida Gulf Coast team. Beat them twice in a row. Also beat a good Murray State team. This is a good basketball team in Middle Tennessee. This is 3 straight games on the road against SEC opponents. Can they go 3-0 heading into Auburn today to take on the Tigers? This is a big test to me for Auburn. Crazy as it sounds, I think they're a better basketball team, Mississippi State, than Auburn. Auburn has had some trouble in stepping up this year, particularly against Temple and certain other teams. But they're a good basketball team. I know people don't want to like Rick Bruce Pearl, but he's done a nice job with this group. This should be a pretty fun game. I do have my eye on Middle Tennessee, but it is concerning. 3 straight games against the SEC. Got to figure they're going to be a bit tired here. But, you know, it is a neutral site game, I do believe here. Any thoughts on Middle Tennessee? I know you've been kind of on that wavelength with me with Middle Tennessee.
I like Middle Tennessee State a lot. I'm not betting against them in this spot. They've proved it. They've done a really, really good job being able to step up in class. And really, we can't be that totally shocked by it. I mean, with this team that pulled one of the better upsets in recent memory in the NCAA tournament when they beat Tom Izzo's Michigan State Spartans. So we know this is a capable basketball team that absolutely blew the doors off Ole Miss last time out, 77-58. That's a real impressive win. How about the defense for this basketball team? That's what I love about Middle Tennessee. They're playing really stout defensively, just allowing 41% shooting for the season, 31% from three-point range, doing a really good job on the defensive end of the basketball court. They've got scores, Brandon Walters, Nick King. We know Giddy Potts, who it seems like has been there forever. He's been sort of a leader for this Blue Raiders team. There's a lot to like right now with Middle Tennessee State. I'm not willing to bet against them. The one issue is, are they ready to keep it going? I mean, they've had two big monster wins in a row, Vanderbilt and Ole Miss. Do they have one more home run performance in them? The one thing you can say about Auburn is this team's performed pretty well this season for the most part. Their only loss was to your Temple Owls, 88-74. Big man on a neutral court. That's it. That's the only loss for Auburn. Bryce Brown, very good scorer for this Auburn Tigers team as well. It's been magnificent shooting the basketball. Now, Mustafa Heron is a guy that is expected to play in this game he had a back injury. It looks like he is going to be good to go, though. That's big for Auburn. Gives them another score, another guard, 15 points per game added to the lineup. Mustafa Heron expected to play. That's going to help Auburn's case here in this game. It's a fun game to watch. I'm not going to be involved, but like I say, I'm a Middle Tennessee State believer. They can step up in class and beat teams like this. They've shown it already. It wouldn't surprise me if they do it again.
Yeah, I got to discuss with the chat box here. This is out of hand right now. I mean, there's a guy, D. Patrick, on here talking about how the gap between Power 5 and mid-majors is closing and that a 16 might beat a 1. I said to him, name one that's happened. Name a top 10 team that's lost to a mid-major. He brings up Cal. Cal's arguably the worst Power 5 team in the country. What are you talking about? Come on, man. They're not beating no top 10 team. The gap is not closing. A 1 seed is going to be a top 10 team. You're telling me that what mid-majors beat a top 10 team this year? I haven't seen any. Who cares about Cal? They're one of the worst Power 5 teams in the country, Ian Cameron. I mean, come on.
Let's not forget, too, who gets a 16 seed in the NCAA tournament?
A top
the
10
NEC,
team. That's
the
what I'm
MEAC.
saying.
Yeah, the SWAC.
Right,
those are the teams that get buried as a 16 seed,
not
and those teams don't have a shot. Yeah.
Right. They're low majors. Yeah. They're not mid-major. A mid-major is Northern Iowa, Gonzaga, teams like that. Cal is Cal. I forget. They're not even going to make the tournament. What are you talking about? I mean, Cal's terrible. Everyone knows that. You're bringing up one, and I said, name a top 10 team that's lost to a 16 type of seed. There haven't been any. There haven't. You're putting out bad
information. That's not an accident. Yeah.
That's right. It's not true. As far as Auburn, I agree with you. I like this team. I think Heron's a great player. Heron's a guy that I was concerned about how he was recruited due to the fact that he came from Connecticut. He was Mr. Basketball in that state. He comes down to Auburn in kind of a weird situation. I was concerned he would be under some kind of investigation just with the Auburn concerns that were there. But he's a good player. They're a good team. This is going to be a battle. But getting the 3 points from a team like Middle Tennessee, who's definitely battle tested, it's going to be a great game. Really looking forward to this kind of game. Where are we going here? Louisville, Memphis. I don't have a big feel in that game. Memphis isn't very good, but they've hit me in many different ways this year. I just can't really seem to figure them out. I've lost with them twice. Last week, I thought Memphis was probably the play against Albany, and they turned out to be it. I just didn't think it was enough points. When you're getting basically a coin flip with a Memphis team that's just athletically better than Albany, it's hard to not make that case. But now you're playing a real basketball team. Now you got to go on the road to play it. Memphis against like a mid-major, Ian Cameron and Albany and Northern Kentucky, I'm interested. But against Louisville, it's a big step up here. Louisville's done a great job on the defensive end this year. They've kind of moved on from the Rick Pitino stuff. Done a great job rebounding the basketball as well, something that they will exploit against Memphis. I'm not really crazy to run to bet on Memphis in this game. I'd be looking at Louisville here.
I don't really like either team, to be honest. It's bet against versus bet against for me. I'm not really sold on what Louisville's done at any point this season as well. I mean, they've played a very friendly schedule. You could say that so far. They haven't played a ton of great competition. The two step up in class games they had, 0-2 straight up, 0-2 against the spread for Louisville in those games at Purdue, and a home loss to Seton Hall. Now, Memphis is going to struggle. I don't trust Memphis one bit here. Going on the road, they have not faced a ton of great teams so far. They played, other than Mercer was a good win, okay. But other than that, it's, Northern Kentucky. Okay, they squeaked one out there, but they've played a very, very light schedule so far. They went on the road once this season in a true road game at UAB, lost that game 71-56. I don't trust them here to step up against Louisville. We'll see how they fare here in this game, but it's not a Tubby Smith Memphis Tigers team that I'm very high on. But at the same point in time, I'm not exactly rushing here in terms of this price range for Louisville. Laying 12 points in this spot, to me, Louisville's got some question marks, so it's a clear pass for me staying away.
Yeah, one game that I'm gonna definitely be on is UNLV. I'm looking at them tonight. A 583, 584, laying 7.5 at Pacific. I know this spot looks concerning if you're a UNLV fan. They're not a great road team over the years, and in their only road game this year, they did lose. But going to Northern Iowa and Cedar Rapids is a little bit different than going to Stockton and facing Pacific. Pacific is a middle to low level West Coast Conference team. They're really more towards the low level than opposed to being high. I mean, we're not going to say that Pacific's going to hang around this year with really anyone. This UNLV team's 8-2 against the spread. They've done a nice job as a favorite in that role. 6 of 7 they've covered. And look, Pacific. I think down the road, David Stoudemire will get it going there. They've done a nice job of scoring the basketball. But again, this is a bit of a step up in competition here. They're going to get absolutely murdered on the glass here. Brandon McCoy and Houston are fantastic on the block. Bringing Johnson over from Milwaukee has been a great addition. Javon Mooring as well has done a nice job this year. I really like UNLV. I think long term they're a bet on proposition, and I think in this spot this just has double digits written all over it. Late night, I'm going to look at UNLV in this spot. Really like it.
UNLV, go fight, win. Well, they're up. What is it, 7.5 now? It's actually stayed pretty consistent. This point spread hasn't moved a ton. And you're right. UNLV to me is always bothersome, wanting to trust them on the road, but they should have athleticism, depth advantages like crazy here against this Pacific Tigers team. I mean, Pacific, you look at what they've done the last couple of games. They've lost 2 straight against UC Davis and Wyoming on the road, but I'm not really ready to trust this team. Damon Stoudemire, who was, of course, an original member of the Toronto Raptors way back in the day, coaching this team now, certainly has a big job to do in terms of improving the Pacific Tiger program. Overall, going to be a tough test here. I know UNLV sometimes a little bit shaky to trust on the road, but this is a great group in terms of their starting five. Brandon McCoy, you mentioned Jordan Johnson, bringing him over, huge addition for UNLV. It's a very, very talented group here. And just on talent alone, it might be enough to cover this number. Pacific, this is going to be a tall order for them. I know UNLV, again, on the road sometimes tricky, but this is one spot where if you're maybe going to trust them on the road, this could be the spot. This could be the opponent to be able to do it.
D. Patrick, it's not going to ever happen. I'll give you 10 years. There's never going to be a 16 over a 1. It's not going to happen. Listen, I get in a way what you're saying. You're basically saying you think that at some point a mid-major team. Listen, mid-majors. If you're talking mid-majors, this year you have Bucknell or a team like that. Okay, maybe you can make the case that they'll beat a 1 seed. But the problem is, Patrick, they're not going to be a 16. A 16 are vacated for the SWAC, for the MEAC conference. Those teams are not going to beat a 1 seed ever. It's not going to happen. The seedings are too good to ever put a team that good in a 16. Because if they're that good, they're not going to be in a 16 seed to begin with. It's not going to happen. It's pretty much one thing that you can chalk up. 20 years down the road, I can't answer that. I don't know how good basketball will be. It's just the truth of the matter. If you think it's going to happen, I think you're kind of grasping for straws here. I mean, can they cover? Sure. But most of the time you're going to be relegated. You're getting Northeastern Conference teams. You're getting very low level Division 1 teams that are playing these teams. They're not even none of them even really hang. 15-2, that's a different story. That's totally different. But a 16 beating a 1, it's not going to ever happen. How strong are the Adderalls you take? They're prescribed. I don't just take them to take them, Nelson. I actually am prescribed them. I need them. I take 18 milligram. Um, let's stop talking about Adderall here for a second.
Your Shoppers Drug Mart moment with Big Man right here. Yeah.
Right, right. North Dakota Gonzaga is an interesting game. Gonzaga laying a huge number here. This is a lot of points to lay. This is basically like Gonzaga laying points last year, Ian Cameron. North Dakota, look, I've been involved with this team. They're a pretty good offensive group. Quentin Hooker and Marlon Hunter, pretty decent. But listen, overall, I mean, they're brutal defensively. They can't stop anybody. It wouldn't surprise me if Gonzaga puts up 100 in this game. I'm kind of looking towards the over in this matchup. Both teams go quick. North Dakota should be able to score a little bit. I'd say they could score 60, 70. Should be enough to get up and over the total. But there's a lot of points to give to North Dakota. Gonzaga should be laying 30 against Florida A&M or Bethune-Cookman. North Dakota, a tournament team last year, a decent talent. Seems like a lot of points to lay. If it was 20 maybe, but 30, 30 and a half, that's a lot of points to give to North Dakota. I think they're shooting for like 102 to 60 here. I don't think it's that bad in the Cameron. North Dakota can score to basketball.
Yeah, I mean Gonzaga, and from a point spread perspective for Gonzaga this year, they're 4-3 ATS and line games, so right around 50-50. It's not like you've been cashing in left and right with Gonzaga this year, and there's a lot of points as you mentioned. There's no denying that. North Dakota, you look at the points they've given up. I mean, 111, 88, 99 the last 3 games. That's not good. Defensively whatsoever for the North Dakota team. Lost all 3 games, 0-3 straight up and against the spread. Even with this amount of points, Big Man, I'm not sure I'm ready to trust them to hang. Don't forget, at Creighton, they lost, 111 to 68, or a huge loss there. They're getting absolutely ripped apart on the defensive end of the basketball court. So I think over makes more sense than either side to me in this game. I think an overplay kind of makes sense.
Yeah, that's my thought. I wrote down here over 160 last night. It's definitely on my wavelength there. That's one that I'm going to keep my eye on here. Should I be on Loyola? Don't understand why the line's dropped. Loyola Chicago playing today. People really have kind of bought in on this Ramblers team after they beat Florida a couple weeks ago. Listen, Porter Moser's a good coach. I mean, this is a good basketball team, Loyola Chicago. And, the big concern you have here is why the lines drop. There's question mark if Brock Stahl will play for Milwaukee. And Brock Stahl is one of Milwaukee's better players. So that's something you want to keep your eye on here. Why the lines dropped, I can't really answer that. I don't really look into why lines have dropped in games like this. Public's not betting. It could be sharp money on Milwaukee. I don't know. But the truth of the matter is Loyola is a way better team than Milwaukee. And if Brock Stahl doesn't go, you're really taking off the best player of one team. I've tried to look up some info on it. It just says he's questionable today with an ankle injury. The game's not till 2 o'clock. So this is one that I'm going to have my eye on. If Stahl doesn't play, I'm probably going to be on Loyola here. Ian, do you have any comment on this game? Do you look into it at all?
Uh, Not much. I mean, Loyola Chicago to me is a bet on team, but at the same point in time, it seems like there's been attacks on this team from a point spread perspective ever since that win against Florida. Seems like there's been a huge bump in the power rating for Loyola Chicago. So I'm not sure you're getting the optimum value with them. That could be a reason why you've seen some people flock in and take the Milwaukee side. Milwaukee's a decent team too as well, playing on their home court. So maybe people see value in the home dog there for that reason. But there's no doubt Loyola Chicago, for the Horizon League standards, that's a good basketball team. They played good defense. The way they shut down Florida in that road win was very impressive. So it's just a question of value for me. I don't want to go against Loyola Chicago. I'm just not convinced you're getting great value. I'm going to give actually a game that I'm going to be on early. It's one of the early starts. It's, I believe, noon. Yes, it is. Noon Eastern. It's going to tip off in about 20 minutes. Hey, I was on this team the other night. When they went to Wisconsin, they lost that game by a single point, Western Kentucky. I'm actually going to buck them here today. In this spot and go with Indiana State, the Sycamores, plus 11 against Western Kentucky. To me, Western Kentucky's in a little bit of a tricky spot here. 2 tough road losses in a row against Ohio and Wisconsin. The Wisconsin one was really tough. That went right down to the wire. They lose by a single point right at the buzzer. Tough loss for Western Kentucky. You got to bounce back now following that loss just a couple days later. Go back home, face this Indiana State team that to me is a pretty decent basketball team. Lansing's always done a great job coaching this team. You look at their results away from home; they've been pretty solid. Don't forget they have a road win at Indiana in a true road game, 90-69 on their resume this season. So Indiana State, one of those scrappy basketball teams, is to me is a little bit of a negative spot here for Western Kentucky. Now they've played good at home. There's no denying that. They had big time blowout home wins on this court against Eastern Kentucky, Wright State, no question about that. But I think Indiana State's going to serve up a little bit more stiffer level of competition here in this game. Early start, noon Eastern. I don't know how rambunctious that home court's going to be for Western Kentucky. So I made a case for Indiana State here catching 11.
Yeah, I actually think this is a pretty good play, Ian Cameron. West Kentucky has very limited depth, very limited depth. They also are not very good on the defensive end. They beat they hung around in that game against Wisconsin. I think that was a lot more to had to do with Wisconsin just really struggling right now. But I actually like this play. I don't think they're a team that should be laying double digits. When you're getting points to West Kentucky, you're 6-7 against a pretty decent team, then I'm interested. But laying a number at home against a team in Indiana State that can score the basketball, do a nice job at the free throw line. You can make 3-pointers if you need them to. I like Jordan Barnes a lot. I'm actually probably going to tell you on this one, Ian Cameron. I think it's a good play. I think you're getting West Kentucky in a little bit of a vulnerable state. So I'm going to agree with you here totally. Might tell you on this one for sure. Let's keep it going here. Feel free to send in questions now. We'll try to uh, bang off as many as we can here in the final 20 minutes of the show here. Let's keep it going, Ian. Temple Drexel today up at Leah and Temple's a team that I've mentioned laying big numbers. It's hard for me to back the Owls. As many know, I've seen them many times for the eye test. Drexel's a team that is they're a team that's coming up. They're not that typical whipping boy in the city anymore. Zach Spiker's done a nice job with this team. I mean, just ask Houston. I mean, they beat Houston early in the year. They're a team that's gutsy. They beat LaSalle a couple games ago, which, listen, Drexel never wins Big Five games or City Six games. Now you're asking Temple, who is just off of a blowout loss, a close win against Wisconsin. Listen, Temple's good, but they're not a team that should be laying 15 points. I mentioned last week with the St. Joe's game. I didn't think Temple should be laying 10, 11 points, and they shouldn't. It was a sandwich game. It was a bad spot. Temple, again, they're a good team as an underdog, laying a short number, but 15 points, they don't pull away from teams. I know this team. I've seen them. They don't pull away from anyone. It's been a problem for many years under Fran Dunphy. They don't have that killer instinct in them, and it's because they sit on the ball. They're slow. They're deliberate at times. They don't have great big men. They don't rebound a great job. They don't do a great job of rebounding. I'm considering leaning Drexel in this game. I actually like the Dragons. They have decent guard play. They're going to be totally up for this game, being a city matchup up at Temple. It's a weird start time. This is too many points to me.
I'm glad you brought that game up. It's one of my plays, and I'm on Drexel here. Plus 5. I actually got 15.5. It even went up a little bit higher earlier today. And Drexel to me is one of those teams that, okay, early in the season had some struggles, had some tough times. They're starting to play better. They're starting to play better basketball as of late. They've won 3 of their last 4 games. Okay, Ryder at home as an underdog, but the LaSalle road win, an 11-point underdog, that was very impressive. They had a bad game last time out against Robert Morris on a neutral court. One of those weird scheduled games. They lose 74-60. I think they bounce back here and give Temple all they can handle. And you look at Temple, when they played their in-city rivals, this Philadelphia series of teams, they haven't exactly been great. I mean, they lose to LaSalle 87-83, laying 3.5 on the road. Against St. Joe's, a week ago, didn't even sniff a point spread cover. 10.5-point chalk. They win by 3 against St. Joseph's in that game. Not impressive by any stretch. In fact, you look at them laying points this year, not very good outside of their very first game of the season against Old Dominion. Outside of that, they lay 11 to George Washington. They lose that game outright. They lay 10.5, as I mentioned, at St. Joe's. They only win by 3. Temple's not a lay 15.5 points with type of team to me. And Drexel has shown up in these games. They beat LaSalle on the road. recently. They're going to be up for a game against a Temple in the city, a little bit of a big brother, little brother rivalry going on. And Drexel's starting to play better basketball as of late. So give me the 15.5. And after Temple lost to Villanova the other night by 20, got kicked in the teeth. Some people say, oh, strong bounce back. I don't know if it's a strong bounce back here. I mean, you got basically humbled a little bit by one of the best teams in college basketball. May not be easy to pick it up right away and be right back on the saddle. I really like Drexel here catching all these points.
Yeah, they've done a pretty good job this year scoring the basketball. They can hang in games. I like I said, this is really a play for me on against the fact that I don't think Temple they don't very often win by 20 plus. The problem that you're going to have when you face Temple is they have such a tough schedule that they're not really into position to ever win by double digits or blow up potential. Drexel's coming around. It could be a humbling spot for them here, but just from what I've seen out of Temple over the last year or two, I don't think they can win a game by 15 points. We'll move on here. We'll head back to the chat. Cincinnati, UCLA. A lot of people asking about that one. Um, Look, I mean, Cincinnati seems like they never play a game on the road. It seems like every game is at home. But now you got to head on the road, head out to Southern Cal. This should be a good game. I mean, two good offenses, two teams that, you know, have plenty of great players. The question I have here for Cincinnati is, can they play good enough defense? I think they have the edge here defensively, but UCLA at home, kind of a different story. I still all year am going to be concerned about UCLA with their depth problem as far as three people leaving the team or being suspended. Other players are having to come in to fill those roles. But I got to tell you, I'm not a big fan of Mick Cronin. Never have been. I think he's all bark, no bite. I don't know how good a coach he really is. He concerns me in games like this. It seems like he always does something stupid in a game to ruin the chances. And look, UCLA will be rocking today. This is a big time game, a ranked team in. I like Welsh and Golemon down low. They're going to have be battle tested, and they're going to have a tough game though against Cincinnati. Tough players in Cincinnati. A lot of good guard play. I just think Cincinnati is the better overall team. I would lay the points Cincinnati. Any thoughts on Cincinnati UCLA?
Yeah, I did lay the points with Cincinnati. There's another play for me today. Cincinnati, what did I get? I believe I got -3. Yeah, -3 on the road here against UCLA. It's up to 3.5, 4 now. I still think it's worth a bet. But at some point, if it gets higher than 4, it might be getting a little pricey, a little out of range. But look, Cincinnati's physical and tough, good defensively. Often that travels on the road. I'm not sure UCLA is any of those things right now. I mean, they've had issues on the defensive end of the basketball court. That was a horrible meltdown against Michigan in their last game last Saturday. I mean, they had a good start to that game. Then when things started to go south for Steve Alford's team, it really went south in a real hurry. And to me, where are the scoring options outside of Thomas Welsh and Aaron Holiday? I mean, you need more from the supporting cast for this UCLA team. If Cincinnati can focus their defense on shutting down two guys, this is going to be trouble for UCLA here in this basketball game. They're going to need someone on the bench, someone else on the starting five, other than Welsh and Holiday, to do some things for this basketball team, or else it's going to be a long day against this very stout Bearcats team on the defensive end of the basketball court. Jacob Evans, Kyle Washington, Gary Clark. They've got more scoring options than they've had in years past. They brought in the kid from Sacred Heart, Broom, as well, who can come in and give them some points. So it's one of those situations where for Cincinnati, a big man, I just think they're the better team. This is not a great situation in terms of you got to go all the way to the West Coast. But they've been off since early this week. They've had some time to acclimate themselves, and I just think they're the better basketball team. I know they're one true road game at Xavier. They lost by double digits, but Xavier to me right now at this stage of the season, really good basketball team. I trust Xavier a lot more than I trust UCLA. So laying 3 on the road, I didn't find was a major impost. So I'm on the Bearcats side.
Yeah, no, I actually kind of agree with you here. This is going to be you talk about a great game. 4 o'clock today, Oklahoma at Wichita State. What a game this is going to be. You have two big time offenses, two teams that love to get out and score the basketball. Trey Young might be the best player in the country overall. As far as shooters are concerned, I think he's probably the best. I think long term he is going to have quite the career in not only college basketball but at the next level. I mean, 29 points a game. Just amazing. Christian James, Kadeem Latin have done a nice job. They have a little bit of a presence down low all of a sudden, Oklahoma. But now you got to go on the road and take on a really good Wichita team. Going to be a great battle. Trey Young against Landry Shamet. Um, you wonder though. I mean, Oklahoma has had some nice wins. You beat Oregon, beat USC. You did lose though to Arkansas. And this is a real good team in a place they don't lose very often. You look at over the last 3 seasons, Wichita State is 32-2 straight up at home. They're 19-8 against the spread. They just don't lose very often and not cover at home. I know Oklahoma's really good in the offensive end, but I have concerns with them defensively, especially against a team in Wichita State that to me is a really complete team. They're a fantastic rebounding group. When they get Marcus McDuffie back off of injury, I bet this team to win the whole thing. I think they have real Final Four potential. This is possibly the best team they've had overall. I actually would consider laying the points. I am going to look more into this game. I just wonder how good, if Trey Young has a bad game, kind of like Buddy Hield when he had a bad game. It seemed like Oklahoma did too. This could be a game where he's shut down. I can't wait to watch this one.
You know what? It is a great game. I'm not going to be involved from a side perspective. Wichita State, a tough nut at home. I mean, they really are. I mean, their home record over the years under Greg Marshall's been fantastic. What's been amazing too about Wichita State, the 8-1 start. What was the only loss? It was to Notre Dame in Hawaii at the Maui Invitational in the championship game by a single point. That's the only loss for Wichita in the season. They've done all of this without Marcus McDuffie, who's now just returning to the practice court. They're hoping to have him back at Christmas time, right after the holiday season. When they get him back, that's going to make this Wichita State team even more dangerous.
Yep.
They play great defense. And Oklahoma, to me, still at the defensive end of the court. They can give it up. I mean, the 80 points per game, 41% shooting. But I don't underestimate Lon Kruger's ability to prepare this team. I mean, if this game's tight down to the wire, it wouldn't shock me. If Wichita State covers, it wouldn't shock me. That's why it's a tough game for me to get a real gauge on and really predict. I'm going to stay out of it, but I'll be watching it. I absolutely will. I'll find a way to watch some of this along with the bowl games, some of the other stuff going on today. But absolutely, this is going to be a fun game. Your point about shutting down Trey Young is a good one, though. I mean, it seems like 29 points last game. Nobody else other than that got into the 20s. So it's like, where's the supporting cast going to be? You need something from Christian James and some of these other starters for Oklahoma. But Oklahoma, they've performed well in certain games. The win against Oregon, win against USC. I'm not selling Oklahoma short. We'll see if Lon Kruger, as this relatively young team, ready to go for a very tough environment here in Wichita. Fascinating game. I'm staying out of it, but good one to watch.
Let's go rapid fire. Illinois State, Ole Miss. Someone's asking about. I'm not looking to lay points with Ole Miss. Nearly double
No.
digits. I don't care that it's at home. Defensively, they're a mess. They have no presence down low. Losing Sebastian Saiz was bigger than people think. He's one of the better rebounders in the country last year. They don't have him anymore. Illinois State's a team that can beat good basketball teams. We've seen that over the years. They're a strong basketball team, even losing some of the players they lost last year. I'm not running to bet Ole Miss. Southern Utah, Central Michigan. Listen, I know Southern Utah's had a good run here against the spread, but those were as big underdogs. They're basically almost a coin flip today against Central Michigan. I got to tell you, this Central Michigan team, if you're looking at a MAC team to maybe do some damage, it might just be Central Michigan. It's amazing how good and rounded they've been, even losing Braylon Rayson and Marcus Keene, because last year those two literally took over. No one else was involved. They didn't play any defense. But now that they're gone, they're a well-rounded group. They play great defense. I think that's where the difference in this game is going to come today. Going out to Cedar City is not easy in Utah. This team is playing pretty well for the record, but this is basically a coin flipping opportunity. You only need Central Michigan to win by a bucket or two. Look, when you're getting 20 points with Southern Utah, maybe they're worth it, but they don't shoot the ball particularly well. They're not good on the defensive end at all. And I like Central Michigan. I think they're a well-rounded team that has played a lot better without those two on the team. Could they score? Yes, but that was about it. Couldn't do much anything else. It was basically get them the ball, isolation, not getting back in transition D. They have a full team now. I think going on the road, Southern Utah sucks. They've luckily been big underdogs in a lot of games. And you look at, Ian, an interesting point. Over the last 5 games as a home underdog of 3.5 to 6 points, Southern Utah is 0-5. So in these kind of close ATS kind of games, they're not in them very often. And a team like Central Michigan is pretty good. I would lean with Central Michigan. I think they're going to go in and get a cover there. Um, Ian, any other games you're looking at?
Yeah, I'm going to go really rapid fire because there's a bunch that I've got bets. I don't want to just give out, pass and a slight lean. We'll give out something that some games I'm actually betting today that I really like. We'll give out some right now. I like actually the over a little bit in that Illinois State Ole Miss game. I think you'll see points in that game. Illinois State's trended over the total. 3 of their last 4 games have gone up and over the total. I think you see points in that game. I like Manhattan, 7 p.m. 8.5, catching 8.5 against Tulsa. I follow the Metro Atlantic conference very closely. I think it's a decent matchup for Manhattan. And you've got Frank Haith talking about how stagnant his Tulsa team offensively has been in recent games. He's really talked about that a lot in quotes the last couple of games prior to this game. So that's a problem for me when you're being asked to lay 8.5, 9 points here against a Manhattan team that, in the underdog role, this is where I like Steve Masiello's team. They've been a very, very good dog over the years, this Manhattan team, and they haven't put things together. They've been very, very erratic, very inconsistent. I understand that 4-5, but I think this team is going to get it going. And I think when Metro Atlantic Conference play starts, Manhattan's going to be one of the better teams in that conference. They are a senior-laden group, 4 seniors, Rich Williams, Zane Waterman. I mean, a very experienced basketball team. I think they start to turn a corner, and I think the turning the corner starts tonight with a competitive effort at the very least against Tulsa. I'll take the points there with Manhattan, about 8.5 plus 8.5 with them against Tulsa. And I'm also liking Northern Iowa a little bit against Iowa State today. I know Northern Iowa on the road a little bit trickier to trust, but for Iowa State, you're going to have to show me you can beat a disciplined team, a good defensive team that's very well coached under Jacobson there. Northern Iowa, of course, remember they had the home win against UNLV. They faced some good competition. We'll see what Iowa State's got in them here. I think Northern Iowa, though, on the road, catching just this small number, has a chance to win that game outright. So, yeah, I would definitely lean to Northern Iowa. And also fade the other Iowa, the Hawkeyes. I think Drake might be worth a look, too. The Bulldogs. That's another game I'm eyeing on as a betting opportunity. Drake had a nice scrappy effort against Minnesota earlier this week. They've battled some decent squads tough. I think they can do that against Iowa. There's still nothing about this Iowa team that overly impresses me right now. Maybe Drake, in one of those situations where they're going to be up for playing a team like the Hawkeyes, that they can hang in that game. So, yeah, there we go. Ole Miss over, Drake, Northern Iowa, Manhattan. Let's go. Hopefully some winners on the way for Saturday.
Yeah, that Drake team, I actually really like them. Reed Timmer, a great player. What do you have to like about Drake is, and I've said this before, when you're getting a team as an underdog, the questions you have to ask yourself are, can they make free throws? Can they make threes to stay in the basketball game? And do they have a player that can take over? All 3 of those boxes Drake checks. They have a player that can take over. They make their foul shots, and they shoot 42.3% from 3. I'm not a big Iowa guy. Drake will be up for this game. It's an in-state matchup. I like Drake. I think they're really might be worth even a money line look today. Getting 6.5, 7 points. I agree with you on that one. That was one I was going to bring up. As far as Northern Iowa, great defensive team. I totally agree with you on that. The question is, can they go on the road and win? But another in-state big. I'll tell you what, the state of Iowa is underrated as far as basketball is concerned. They have a lot of really competitive teams in that state, even down in the lower rungs with Drake and Northern Iowa. This is a good state for basketball. So as far as your games, yeah, I think I like all of them. I definitely tailed your play on Indiana State. Ian, recap what you're on, then I'll throw out a couple that I'm looking at.
Yeah, just to go through it, I posted it in the chat just now. Drake plus the points, Northern Iowa plus the points, Manhattan plus the points, Syracuse minus the points. I got a much better number on Cuse. I would only lean at 5 with Syracuse. I got 2.5, but I think they could still actually cover 5, to be honest with you. If you want to take a shot, you can, even though it's a worse number. Cincinnati as well against UCLA and Indiana State. You better run to get Indiana State in. That game's tipping off in a couple minutes. Indiana State against Western Kentucky. That's it.
Yeah, for me, I'm looking Central
Oh, I
Michigan.
forgot one.
Like that.
Drexel. Forgot Drexel. That one as well. Drexel plus the points.
Yeah, I'm looking at Central Michigan. I'm looking at. I want to see what Loyola Chicago. I want to see what the status of Stoll is in that game. Looking at early on, I'm going to take a shot with Detroit Mercy. Small play, not huge or anything. I took a shot there at plus 19. Just think that's a little too many points without a Wagner in there. But for me, it's very early. Gonna definitely tone these down, see which one I'm looking at. I'm not a high volume player, Ian. I pick one or two games, try to grab a winner every day and make some profit. But as far as every game here, they're all very interesting. One other one, maybe Arizona's worth a look today. New Mexico is dreadful. Their best player just left the program, Sam Logwood, which to a team that's already struggling, it's going to be a bigger struggle here. And Arizona seemed to gotten it going. As far as though, Ian, any bowl games you're just running to bet? I know they're getting kicked off today. We've talked about the ad nauseum though here on the channels. Any bowl game you want to throw out?
Yeah, I mean, I was on Marshall plus the points, but that one's moved. I mean, it's moved significantly, so you're losing some value. But I do like Marshall. Think they challenge to win outright against Colorado State. I think a few of these games can go over the total as well. I think you see points between Georgia State, Western Kentucky. You see points between Middle Tennessee State and Arkansas State in the nightcap in the Camellia Bowl. And probably I'd lean Oregon. I got a good number early with Oregon in that game, minus 6. It's gone up since then, what, 7.5. But I'd still think Oregon's going to flex their muscles a little bit and show the class difference that they have against Boise State in a down Mountain West Conference this year. This was not a banner year for Mountain West football, and I think Oregon might show that today.
Yeah, I'll go with 2 here. I'm going to go Georgia State plus 7 against West Kentucky. Don't really know why West Kentucky's laying a full touchdown. All year, this team has struggled to cover numbers. They're 1-6 as a favorite. I don't think their offense is very good, frankly. Yeah, I hear national people talking about how potent their offense is. It's just not very true. I mean, that's the general problem I have with the national media. They have no idea what they're talking about with games like this. West Kentucky's had issues all year covering. I think Georgia State will be up for this game. They always are. 7 points to me is a little bit too many for a team that's had issues covering all year. Another one I'm looking at over Middle Tennessee, Arkansas State. I don't see any concern to think that there's going to be a lot of defense played in this game. Middle Tennessee has been a bend but don't break defense, but against a team like Arkansas State, I think they're going to have a lot of trouble stopping Justice Hansen. I think on the other side, they're going to have a lot of trouble stopping Brent Stockstill. Two teams that really don't run the ball very much. You look at the last 3 games for Ark State, 619 yards a game. I think you're going to see a lot of points in this football game. Going to be a fun one down there in Mobile or Montgomery, wherever that game is. I'm actually decently excited for the bowl games, and I know it's 12 o'clock, but I'm going to take one more minute here because I don't believe there's any shows coming up. The the Celebration Bowl is about to get going here. I lean A&T in the game at this number. At 7, I wasn't as into it, but under a touchdown, I think A&T is the better football team. They're undefeated, 12.5 points a game they're giving up defensively, plus 16 turnover margin. Grambling's a good football team. They're a storied program. Eddie Robinson, Doug Williams. This is a great game, though. Great band stuff at halftime. Cheerleaders are fun. This is a great game. A game that needs to be respected by football fans. These are historically black colleges going head to head. It's a huge game for each school. I like A&T to cap off an undefeated season. I think they get a 7-point win here against Grambling State University. I'm going to go A&T minus 5, Middle Tennessee, Arkansas State over. What do we have a number here? 61, I believe. And I'm going to go with
60.5
Georgia.
now. Yes, that's a good number.
Okay. And I'm going to go Georgia State plus 7. Other than that, guys, as Gabe Morenci would say, you're on your own.
You're on your own.
Ian Cameron, what do you have going on this weekend? Anything fun? Doing anything?
Well, just sitting back watching all the sports. We got hockey, basketball. We've got football games, NFL. Great, 2 good NFL games today, especially the Saturday night game. A great NFL slate tomorrow. Green Bay, Carolina, Rams, Seahawks, Patriots, Steelers. Really an elimination game in the playoffs Sunday night, Dallas, Oakland. Loser of that game is definitely out of the playoffs, so that's even a big game. It's a great slate of sports this weekend. I'm just looking forward to it. I'll be at my favorite bar, favorite watering hole in the city tomorrow for the NFL. I'm looking forward to that here in Hamilton. It's a great bar, 30 TVs, direct TV satellite. They get everything, every channel, every game. It's fantastic. I'll be down there enjoying a few brown pops. It'll be a lot of fun.
That's great, man. And look, good luck with that. Have fun. One other programming note as we go here, guys. Did just get the okay. As long as it works for Gabe Morency, which I believe it does. Looks like tomorrow we're going to have the betcast during the Steelers Patriots game, not the late game. So we're going to be on at 4 o'clock as opposed to 8 o'clock. We're going to promote it. Hopefully, it gets to everyone here. But if you're out there listening and you enjoy the betcast, we're going to do Patriots Steelers. I think that works for Gabe. We've already talked about it. We got the go ahead from the great Ariana here at SBR. So we're going to do that tomorrow. I guess 4:15 will be on Steelers Patriots betcast. Should be fun. We're doing it during the day in Cameron. Going to be a little bit funner than normal. The game Sunday night's not good. Got to get on the mainstay here. Big game. Steelers Patriots.
Well, and I'm getting over my bar hangover. I'll maybe check out that Betcast archived after the fact. But that's good. Good, you guys got that Pat Steelers game to do that because that's a great game and it's probably the best game of the day. And Betcast at SBR can't beat it. 4 o'clock, 4:25, I believe that game kicks off. Tune in. It's always a lot of fun as Bigman and Gabe often give you a lot of entertainment when things don't go well. But hopefully they go well for you two guys. Cash some winners in that game.
Exactly. Everyone have a great day. I'm Jeff Nady. You can follow me on Twitter at Jeff Nader, JFFNEDU. Follow Ian Cameron on Twitter at Pabano. This has been the closing line. Next week, what we'll do as the basketball really takes center stage, get the full cards, we'll have 4 or 5 plays of the day every day on the closing line here. Really wanted to kind of get it going and see how we wanted to do it. But we'll be back next week, 11 a.m. Ian Cameron and myself. Everyone have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Good luck, everyone.